Evening, heathens. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. So, I am wrapping up my new fantasy reading for the month. So, I have bought a shit ton of fantasy books lately because I'm very much in my fantasy era. I'm even fantasifying my wardrobe now. I feel like I could go into battle with this jacket. Anyway, so not the point. I have been reading a lot of fantasy, and I did a video a couple of weeks ago showing all the books that I picked up, and now I'm going to go through what I thought of them. So I will say I found some fabulous books, some books that are quite possibly going to be favorites of the year, and like the title of the book says, I am calling all ACOTAR fans, Holly Black fans. I have found my new wicked fairy romantasy obsessions, and I shall be talking about they are. You need to pick. Also, Danielle L. Jensen fans. Yeah. So anyway, so there is that, but I've also got one of the biggest lows. Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. This book made me want to throw myself off a cliff. It was over. I mean, if you love it, bless you. But anyway, so let's start with a real high. So I was talking about Danielle L. Jensen, and if you like that kind of Viking fantasy and you want something new to read while you're waiting for the second book to come out, may I please urge you to pick up The Road of Bones by Demi Winters. First of all, her name is Demi Winters. It's perfect for the season. It's actually, a lot of the book is actually set around like midsummer, but because of that kind of, indeterminate Nordic Viking setting of the book, I think it works perfectly for this time of year as well. So I just think it's kind of look at that cover. It's kind of the perfect read for the season. But what is it about? So I am obsessed with this book, and I think the sequel comes out in February for the first few months or March of next year, and I cannot wait. So I'm definitely going to be picking up the second one. So it is about our main character, and she is, it starts off where she's in this little village. There's actually a really harrowing scene in the beginning of this book. So within this kingdom, you have kind of the old king and the new king, and the old religion and the new religion. And the new king is very anti-magic. Anybody that is using magic gets killed. It's very much akin to the witch trials. And this book actually starts off with our main character. She is in her like village that she lives in, and she hears kind of these like sirens, and she's like, oh no, this is bad. So they all have to gather, and up on kind of a platform, they've got these three women essentially tied to stakes, and the priests for the new king kind of come in and say these are magic users, they need to be killed. And it's a very visceral opening sequence to this book. So not for the faint-hearted. This book also explores topics on addiction. So know that going in if that's something that you're sensitive about. I always say I have many triggers, but I just plow in anyway. I confront them. But if you do have triggers, please just look up the trigger warnings. So there is some assault as well. Like I said, addiction in here. But so that's kind of it's a very visceral first scene. And then her father basically turns to her and says, so we have to leave. We have to leave. We have to go. We have to move on. And you kind of realize that her and her father seem to have been kind of running from place to place, but you don't know why at that point. Also, while she's in the square and this is happening, she's talking to a little blonde girl. And you also realize that little blonde girl is, no one else can see her. So you're like, is that a spirit? Is that in her head? What's going on there? And then as they're trying to leave, they get attacked by the king's guards. And her father actually gets killed by the king's guard trying to save her. And the last thing she hears one of these king's guards say is, they're trying to take her with them. And he basically says, the queen wants you, but don't worry, she won't kill you quite yet. But her father does manage to kill all of these kind of king's guards before he dies. And when she wakes up, she's kind of all alone. And she's like, well, what do I do now? So the plan was to kind of go north to another town where her father said to her there were some sort of safe houses where they could get shelter. And she's like, well, I'm going to continue with this plan. And that's kind of where The Road of Bones comes in. So the rest of this book is her kind of traveling along. And because this is such a dangerous area, what she does is she crawls into a wagon because she feels like obviously she can't do this on her own. Except the wagon she crawls into is basically a band of mercenaries. Really, really picked well there. And kind of the story goes from there, and it's them traveling on the road of bones, her being pursued. You're kind of finding out as we go along about her past. She does a lot of lying. People do a lot of lying in this book. But she's basically trying to protect herself. I also think what I love about this main character is she's very much, and the author does say that, it's a soft female main character. And I'm a Mia Colvert girl, right? I like my female characters quite tough, like Alex Stern, Mia Colvert, that kind of thing. But I actually really liked Zilla. I loved her kind of growth, because as we go through, she kind of learns to rely on herself. She learns to almost save herself. And I love that. There's romance plots in here as well. There's just there's kind of that found family. There's a lot of trauma. There's this, I love this band of mercenaries. If you've read Bloody Rose and Kings of the Wild, this band of mercenaries kind of reminds me of that sort of bond that they have together. And yet as they're traveling, like I said, the setting is amazing. I love the character development. There's representation in here. One of the women in this band of mercenaries, she has her one arm is amputated, so she has like a mechanical arm, which is really cool. One of the other women doesn't speak, and I'm not sure if she uses kind of like sign language. So I know she doesn't speak. I'm not entirely sure if she's deaf. She may be, but she definitely doesn't speak. She uses sign language. And I like the fact that there was a bit of that kind of representation in this, but they're still sort of badass, mercenary women that will fight, right? And I think that's really cool. So I cannot recommend this highly enough. This is a easy 5 star for me. Love this book. And like I said, if you're looking for more Viking fantasy, there is romance in here. So this is technically a romantasy, but there's a lot of world building, action, fighting, found family fantasy in here that I think any fantasy reader would absolutely love. So I just think that one is fabulous. Then I actually snuck one in as well. So one that wasn't in my original video and isn't actually new, but I just want to talk about it real quick because I'm going to finish this entire series and then do a whole video on it, is Light Lark by Alex Astor. People have mixed opinions. I'm here to say I loved it. I absolutely love this. So this incorporates one of my favorite things in the world, is like trials. And you've got these kind of kingdoms that every 100 years, this sort of kingdom or city or world of Light Lark appears, and there's the centennial games, and essentially these different kingdoms, they've been cursed and they have different curses placed on them, and they're trying to break these curses. So they all get together on Light Lark to kind of play the centennial game and try and break the curses and kind of save their realms. And it's the rulers from each one of these realms that get together. I'm going to do more on this because I'm going to do more an in-depth video on this particular book, but again, this was an absolute 5-star read, and I'm so continuing with this series. I absolutely love it. And I think if you like romantasy, a bit of sort of white who's in a way, or like two love interests, if you like kind of, I love the descriptive writing. I was so in this world. And if you like that kind of game element and like a hunt for something, and yeah, it's in the back, it says lie, cheat, betray, which this book definitely does. I love this. Like I said, I snuck this in because I was desperate to read it, and I'm so glad I did, because Light Lark, I loved it. So the next book. So this, calling all ACOTAR fans. Now, I'm basically just going to use this as an opportunity to show off my, oh yes, my really beautiful special edition. So isn't that gorgeous? I'd like to thank Waterstones because I'm using my points for this one. Well, I used my points for this one. And it's just, I mean, look at that. Oh, okay. I'm going to do a whole video on my special editions. But anyway, so if you like ACOTAR, then may I recommend 2 new Fae romantasy series that I'm kind of obsessed with. So the first one that I think is phenomenal, and this is probably going to be one of my books of the year. This is Servant of Earth, and this is by Sarah Hawley. Now this book, I mean, you could, if you want to do the typical comp type of stuff, I would say it's kind of ACOTAR meets Holly Black fairies, so Cool Prince. Lots of Fae politics and intrigue, kind of what is going on, really cruel king, plots to overthrow the king. But also you've got a little bit of romance in here, some spice. You've got a human girl who is sent down to this Fey world and becomes a servant of Earth, so servant of the Earth House. And there's so much like this. Again, there's a trial element in this. So there's a trial that some of the younger Fae have to take. So there's that element, which I love. And I just love the way this world is. She writes it so beautifully. I can see everything in front of my eyes. And I cannot wait for, assuming, another book in this series. So what is the main premise? So the main premise here is that our main character, so she's human. And she lives sort of above ground in the human village. And what happens is that their kind of elders and their priests, which is, they keep kind of saying, oh, fairy, they're so amazing, the fae is so amazing. And then kind of every year they have this, they select, I think it's 3 or 4 young women from the town to kind of, they have to basically like run through the bog, and then they're supposed to get to fairy, and their life is supposed to be amazing when they get to fairy, because life's pretty miserable as a human. So they've been told this all of their lives. So the choosing comes around, and actually her best friend is chosen, and she can't, she's like, oh my God, my best friend, but no. She's trying to protect her and she's trying to help her. So she kind of follows her out of town. And what happens is that they've been lied to. As they're trying to get to Fairy, they basically are all killed except for her. And on her way in there, she picks up this dagger. And it's this really strange dagger that actually almost forms itself like jewelry around her arm, and she didn't really understand it, but hey, we're going with it, right? It's great. So she's the only one that manages to make it to Fairy, right? And she's kind of dragged in front of the king, and he's just like, what the hell? Why? The whole entertainment for them is watching them die. So at first they're going to put her to death. Then one of the other kind of princesses is like, nah, let's do something different. Kill people all the time. This is boring. Let's give her to Earth House as the handmaiden to Lara, who is the princess who's the heir to Earth House. Now, within this kingdom, again, the magic system's really cool. Like within Fairy, you have different houses. So you've got Earth, Light, Void, Illusion, Fire, and the one that no one talks about, Blood. You don't talk about blood. And so Earth House is very famous for being neutral. So they do not get involved in fairy politics. They pride themselves as being advisors. They pride themselves as being neutral. And this obviously irks the king. He's not happy about that. So he's basically trying to demean them by giving this kind of human girl as the handmaiden to the princess of Earth House. And Lara, the princess of Earth House, she has to compete in these trials. So when the heirs kind of come of age, they want to come into they have magic, but not as strong as they do until they go through this trial. It's almost like a coming of age trial where they have to do different trials based on the different houses. And that's when they kind of come into their full powers. So giving her a servant who is human is just, it's a massive insult, right? Everybody else is laughing at her, basically. And poor Lara, she's not the toughest to start off with. So, you know, but and kind of the story goes from there. They have to. So what ends up happening is that she helps her with the trials, and then, like I said, there's a lot of court politics and intrigue because this king is really, really ruthless. He's horrible. You know what he does to the humans. Again, there is some things in here. Again, there's probably trigger warnings. Have a look. But I love this. This is such a great blend of fantasy, of action, of romance, of spice, of kind of real gut-wrenching, some really interesting kind of discussions around, you know, obviously you've got these indentured servants and things like that, of how we treat people, about power dynamics, all of that kind of stuff. So it's one of those books that not only is an absolute fun ride, but it'll also make you think. You know, you can read as much or as little into it as you want to, but I am obsessed with this. I just read that. That's very, very good. I think we got that right. Then my other new fairy obsession is this one. These covers are so pretty. This is The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. And I really like this. There's something with the writing. It is very descriptive. It's very beautiful. I heard someone else reviewing this and they were talking about sort of like abrupt kind of changes of POV and that, and I get what they're saying. It didn't really bother me, but I get what they're saying. So there are some times where it can be a little bit abrupt and the POV changes or the scene changes quite abruptly. But overall, I love this. And again, it ends and I'm like, what? Yeah, what? Now I need book 2, right? So Courting of Bristol Keats is about Bristol Keats, titular. She is human. So it's her and her 3 sisters, and they are kind of just hanging out in the, like, our world, human world, in the little village. And her parents both have died. So she's kind of come back from college to help her sisters because they're really struggling. A couple of jobs, the 3 of them are really kind of struggling to get by. And what they need is money. And she keeps, I think it's the 3rd one in the beginning of the book that she gets, but she gets these letters that are supposedly from an aunt. They don't have an aunt. And she's like, what? I don't have an aunt. But these letters basically say, hi, I'm your aunt. I want to meet you. In exchange for you to just come in to say hi, meeting me, we're the family, I will give you some art and you can sell it because you need money. So she resists and resists and resists. And then she's like, okay, I need the money. I'm going to go. So she goes off and she meets this aunt. And when she gets there, she sees things that are not of this world. And essentially she finds out that these people are fairies and they kind of offer her a deal. They say, we'll give you this art and we'll give you some more art and you can sell it for a heck of a lot of money. I think they're Da Vinci sketches, if I remember correctly. And she's just like, but you've got to help us with something, got to help us find something. And Bristol is, this is weird, but she's like, okay, all right, we really need the money. I really want to help my sisters. How bad can this be? Also, her father was killed. However, someone says to her, he's not dead. He was taken by Trows and he's in Fairy. And she also then wants to go to try and find him and figure out what happened to her father because she believes he's still alive. So she basically says to this prince, okay, I'll help you if you help me find my father. So those are kind of the 2 main plots of this. And then again, there's a lot of kind of core intrigue when you get to Fairy that basically is around, what's going on. The prince's brother's been kind of kidnapped. You don't know who's the bad guy, who's the good guy. You're finding out her history, her parents' history. There's a wonderful romantic plot in this, which I really loved. I like Bristol as a character. I think she's great. She's tough when she needs to be. She has no problem kind of fighting for what she wants. I like the writing. I thought it was beautiful. Again, it transported me to this land. I could see the balls, I could see the fae, I could see everything in front of me. And for me, that's so important with a book. If I can't see it, if I can't see myself in this world, then it's a miss for me. And these 2, Servant of Earth and Courting of Bristol Keats, I could absolutely see myself in these worlds. And again, this is very much sort of that ACOTAR meets Holly Black, Cruel Prince kind of vibe where you've got the fae that are not, I would say they're much more severe in Servant of Earth. So if you really like, the Unseelie and the Dark Fae, Servant of Earth, these ones are not so bad, but they're also not cute and fluffy, right? But I was obsessed with both of these books. I absolutely love them. There's another 5-star read for me, and I cannot wait for the second book. Then, before we go to the last book that I liked, I'm going to go to the book that I actually don't even know what to say about this. So this is The Great Wen by Alan Moore. I had such high expectations for this book and I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. And like I said, absolutely bless you. Go forth, enjoy if you enjoyed it, if you can handle the writing in this book. But I literally, my jaw dropped when I was trying to read this because I was like, how? How are you meant to actually read this? And I might look for a kind of a, it's just, I was going to try and look for a thing, but the way this is written is just like someone took a thesaurus and a dictionary, word vomited it on a page and went, here's a book. how this has been published. I have very strong opinions on this. I'm not going to go into all of it right now because this is going to be on my worst books of the year. Spoiler alert. But it's unreadable. Like, to me, and please tell me if you think otherwise, but to me, this is completely unreadable. I mean, the glasswork of an optical arrangement in its thorax sparkled with reflected 19th century flame as it surveys the detailed artistry beneath, racketing, clicketing, swiveling appropriate magnifiers into place with lurching shadow vast against the flickering plastered overhead. What? What does that even mean? Like, I mean, I tried. I really, really tried to read this, but it's literally like someone just word souped onto a page and then went, here you go, here's a book. I mean, is this supposed to be a joke? I don't, it's kind of like the very, very first chapter. I thought, okay, I'm getting sort of vibes of like Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman, that quite English sense of, but I mean, glancing down at the delinquent lawn, he smiles apologetically, stares for a few moments, broad bulldog features settling. I mean, it just goes on. I mean, the descriptive, like, he uses 50 million descriptive words to describe one thing, like a cup of coffee, you know, a page later, oh, it's a cup of coffee. Oh, that's what we were talking about. Great. Thanks. It's just, I'll in my worst books of the year, I'll find some passages that I thought were particularly just insane. But I don't know, this book is like someone wrote it on drugs. I tried. I think I got through 2 or 3 chapters before I almost threw this across the room. It is such a pretty book. It may just stay on my shelf because it's pretty, but it is literally one of the worst things I've ever had the misfortune of even trying to read. And like I said, if you can read that, bless you, you are a better person than me. And then to the last book that I absolutely enjoyed. This is Wren in the Holly Library. And this is by K.A. Lind. I really, really like this book. So again, I'm very happy I like this because I have this beautiful, I think I was showing off this gorgeous special edition in the original video. And I'm so glad that the outside matches the inside. So this one is, oh, it's so much fun. So another thing that I love along with kind of tournaments is heists. And I think that kind of goes back to older Six of Crows, but like heists I love as well. And this is essentially about our main character. She is a thief. And the backstory is actually really, really tragic. So the backstory in this world is that, so this is contemporary. So this is set in modern day New York, but the premise here is that monsters, so vampires, werewolves, shifters, came out the closet. Woo! Okay. And because they're kind of like eating people, that didn't go so well. And then there was a monster-human war. And this is kind of after the monster-human war where peace treaty's been signed. Yay! Yay, we're not killing the humans anymore. Joke. But so basically you've kind of got humans and you've got monsters, right? And the humans didn't fare so well. A lot of them are living in poverty, and a lot of like, it's quite cool the way she describes New York, and this is set in winter in New York, perfect for the time of year. Also Wren, Holly, and you know, very downtrodden areas. Like, you do not go to Times Square, like, unless you want to die. Then go to Times Square, it'll be fun. But things like that. So I kind of like that in this book. I loved, because I do like urban fantasy, and I kind of like that setting. But anyway, our protagonist, she is a thief, and so this is how she gets by. There's very much found family is here as well, because her parents were killed during the war. She was out on the streets. She got found by a girl whose mother actually owns a brothel. And her and this girl and her friends, so Jen and Ethan and her, they all live kind of above the brothel. And in order to pay for their room and board, in order to make money, she's a thief. And there's also different factions within the city of like gangs. A lot of them relate to both human and monster. So one of the gangs is like werewolves, for example. But anyway, so she is doing this job, and it seems too easy. And she's going to steal a diamond ring, and she's like, this is really easy. Like, there's no security here. What is good? This is really easy. I really hope this isn't a monster's house. Yeah, it is a monster's house. Now, it is a crime to steal from the monster, and they can kill you, essentially. So she's like, oh shit. He catches her. But instead of killing her, he basically says, great, I've got a job for you. So instead of killing her, he recruits her to do a very dangerous job. Now, we know that there's something hinky going on here with him, because she's like, he's not human. What is he? What is he? And I don't know if I should tell you, because I feel like that's part of like finding out what he is. So it kind of goes from there. So she agrees to do this job. Again, there's a lot of kind of underworld politics going on. There's the vampire King Louis, who dresses like King Louis, which is a lot of, well, I say fun. He does gonna kill people, but which I love. There's kind of this underground market that they go to, where they're planning to do this heist, and she has to do reconnaissance in there. I love that element of it. I love all kind of the prep and the lead up. There's also romance in here. There's also her kind of figuring out what is going on, who am I, kind of figuring out yourself in this as well, and your strengths. Like I said, there's a real great emphasis on kind of the found family and looking out for each other, and the love that she has for her friends. There's also, what I also love is the author note in the front, and she talks about that this was inspired very much by her trip to Ireland. So there's a lot of kind of Irish mythology in here. So she's like, yeah, it was raining on my favorite day in Ireland, and she kind of used that as part of this. So, which again I really, really loved. It's set in New York, but it has a lot of that Irish, and some of the characters have Irish heritage, and I just love this. This kind of took me back to my classic kind of urban fantasy, werewolves versus vampires, kind of versus witches, sort of fantasy. I just thought this was delightful. I had an absolutely wonderful time with this. This is another 4.5, 5-star read for me. I will say, there's a couple of steamy scenes, and they're awkward. Especially the second one, not so much. The first one is just, I can't put my finger on it, but it's just a little bit awkward. So know that. But really, it's really not the main part of this book, but it was awkward. So I might say like 4.5, 4.75 on this, but I absolutely loved it. And again, it ended and I was like, oh, come on. So I want to read the next one. I think that comes out in June, is the next book. So very excited about that. So that was me lot. I still have some more fantasy, new fantasy that I still want to read from my last haul, and then I've hauled some more, so I'll do another video and we'll talk about that. I've also got a vampire reads video coming up, and my first one is urban fantasy. I also have some more vampire books that I've been reading from my TBR. I will also be doing a vlogmas kind of thing where I'll be posting a hell of a lot in December. Maybe not every single day. I don't know if I could commit, you know, job-wise and all that, to doing every single day, but I will be posting a lot of videos in December because it's the year end. There's a lot to talk about, and I have a lot of ideas. So let me know if you've read any of those books. Let me know if you can actually read The Great Wen, because like I said, you are a magician if you can. And have a wonderful evening, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Bye.